Hey, see the Washington Monument, Congress behind me. I'm in the belly of the beast, man. I drove down today from New Jersey. I really wanted to take Amtrak. That'd be $500. Well, what country, what a country this is. There's more people here than the ball game. That's a quote from Godfather 2 when Frankie Pentangeli is in the courtroom. I will drop a few movie quotes now. I'm a dad, so I will footnote them, though, because one day I might want to run for president, and I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing. I'd never make it, right?
Good people should not run for office. Please do not.
Anyway, I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. I'm here to talk a little bit about my experiences with insurance and prescription prices, my observations. Story kind of starts around 2002. My wife had left her job to stay home with my one daughter, and that was the plan, and I was going to work at my job forever. And 3 months later, I got laid off. And my wife was also pregnant. And this is like a country music story song. But she was pregnant, and I didn't want to tell her because I thought I'd just get another job and tell her when I get another job. Wasn't that fun, Because she was pregnant, I don't want any stress, because stress is bad for any condition, even for being perfectly healthy. Stress isn't good. So I took all the stress on myself. I wasn't eating most of the time. Anyway, I started my own business at the time just to make ends meet. And that's the plan that I stayed with for many years. And 2003, let's see, I was buying my own insurance ad for the business. And let's see, my wife delivered a baby March 30th, 2003. 033003. 3 threes. I thought 3 is a lucky number, right? It's got to be great. So when she turned 3, my daughter, the luck kind of ran out. And it was in August. She had a virus, a fever, a couple days, not a big deal. She got over it. Everything was fine. And then about a week or two later, my wife would call me and she said, something's wrong. Kelly, something's wrong with her. She's drinking a lot of water. And I was really dumb as they come. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? We should all be drinking more water. 8 glasses a day. That's what they say, according to a Dead Press song. So she said, well, she's also peeing a lot. And I said, well, do I have to mansplain this, how the system works? If you drink more, you're going to pee more. Right? What's wrong? So she kind of had a pause. And then she said, well, on the way home, pick up another pack of pull-up pants. If you don't know, that's babies are in diapers, and then just they graduate to pull-up pants, and then they're no more, there's no more diapers or anything. And I said, well, 2 days ago, I bought like a 30-pack of pull-up pants. Well, yeah, I know. That's what I'm using. I got 4 left. And that's when I knew there was a problem. Turns out those are classic signs of type 1 diabetes. And then we found out, we got diagnosed, and we found out everything we wanted to know about diabetes, but we were afraid to ask. And I know since I mentioned the word, there's a lot of misinformation. A lot of people get joke formation. Diabetes, it's the Jimmy has 12 candy bars and eats 10. What'd he get? Okay. So cool to make jokes about deadly diseases, right? We used to call diabetes type 1, we used to call it juvenile diabetes. But it turns out half the people are over 25 when they're diagnosed. I know people personally diagnosed in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So everybody I see here is at some non-zero risk of type 1. That's why I want to just go through the little information about it. It often runs in families. I know my wife, her grandfather and uncle were type 1. But half the time it doesn't run in a family. It's the first case. It drops unexpectedly like bird poop. Notorious B.I.G. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease with no known cause. Your immune system attacks the part of the pancreas that makes insulin. And when it's done, you're no longer making insulin. It has to be delivered from outside the body. So this is economically, this is like inelastic demand. You need it to live. Everybody I see is on insulin here. Everybody I see, except most of us are just making it naturally for free. And that's really, you don't know what a blessing that is. Insulin's a hormone that regulates your sugar and carbs, stores glucose away. Otherwise, your body gets this need to drink a lot of water to flush it out through your kidneys. So that explains the dire thirst and the frequent urination, which is a sign of warning sign of type 1 diabetes. I had to say that because I might save a life today by giving the information. You might hear someone talking about their kid or talking about themselves, or it might be you yourself. Not having healthcare ability to get healthcare also increases your chance of not being diagnosed, and probably, well, not probably, if you're not diagnosed and if you don't take insulin, you're going to be dead shortly. So it's also not brought on by diet and lifestyle. Don't come up to me after this and tell me about an exercise routine or eating cinnamon or something like this. I know people diagnosed 9 months old, 7 months old, 6 months old. They're not even eating solid food. They're not even walking for months. This isn't diet exercise, you know. And you might tell me I eat a healthy diet and exercise. That's beautiful. It's fantastic. I could show you people, they were in Olympic training camps, cross-country skiing, track racing on a bike, different things like this. They were they got lower body fat than today's mortgage rates. Right. I write my own material sometimes. But they got type 1 diabetes in peak condition. So when my daughter was diagnosed, her insulin at the time was about $72 a vial. And then online, I saw I could get it from Canada for $40 a vial. But, you know, the prices, I bought it sometimes, but the prices were always under $100. So it was never like earth shattering. You might look at the shipping cost and say, just buy it down the street. But every year, the insurance I was buying for my business, it started out around $500. And every year, $650, $700, $900. I remember it was like $780 a month. And then the next year's rates came out. It went up to $910. I said it didn't even have the courtesy to waver around the $800 numbers. You know, it just skipped right up to $900. And then around the housing crisis, when we bailed out Wall Street, around then I had some problems, and I lost a client that was good for about $70,000 a year to me. So it was my only client, but that was like the biggest. And times are tough. And I found out we qualified for a CHIP plan now in New Jersey because of the low income. So they have those graphs with family size and income. And then if you get the CHIP plan for free, how much it will be a month. I think we were paying $150 a month for the CHIP plan. It was great insurance. There was like very little copay or deductible, if at all. And covered everything. But I mean, if you need to give people without money insurance, it's got to be that way, or you might as well give them nothing. So then we got a new governor in New Jersey, and he rearranged all those rates. You might remember that governor was kind of famous, Notorious G.O.V. He was the guy on the beach, Chris Christie. Yeah, so he kind of like wrecked that whole plan. And my business was recovering. We were now in the Affordable Care Act marketplace, the good old marketplace. And the plan then was about $1,400 a month for insurance. And we couldn't wait to find any way out. So once my daughter's, the youngest, she's here. Once my daughter got into like 5th grade or so, my wife went back to work, this time for an account temp organization. And one of their benefits, they said, we have healthcare benefits. I said, all right, we're on. It's like, oh, not you, just the employee and her children, not the spouse. And we are still paying this was called a MEC plan, MEC, minimum essential coverage. According to the Affordable Care Act, they were covered, man. So when you hear people say, oh, the Affordable Care Act covered 20, 30 million people, I don't know how many of those were MEC plans, but you would not consider that covered. They paid nothing for nothing. I was then getting, trying to get it, I used to call it soprano insurance. So it's like paying protection money to Tony, and one day someone breaks a window, and something just tells you don't bother calling Tony to get the window repaired. So I was now having difficulty finding online drugs from Canada for insulin. And I actually went to Canada for business. And one night after dinner, another guy I was working with, he had the car. So I just walked a few blocks. Canada Superstore. It's like a super Walmart. They're selling everything. They have a pharmacy, a health clinic. I went in there. I was just looking for information. I didn't have any of her prescription slips or anything to buy, I didn't think. Well, they said, yeah, $34 for a Humalog insulin, fast-acting insulin, $34 Canadian, so 27 US. And they sold me a half dozen vials. Now, if you saw a half dozen vials of insulin here, you would say, oh, that's a half dozen vials of insulin. But for me, I see that as August, September, October, November, December, and January that my daughter will be alive. So it's a different thing to me. I walked back to the hotel. I was in this mix of rage and happiness that I got the insulin, but sadness and tears. And I was furious with the insurance and pharma. They were just treating my daughter like a cash cow for life. That's all they saw her as. And she's so much more. I also went to Mexico for work. Was able to do the same thing there. No scripts. Went to the pharmacy. I don't speak Spanish, but I took my phone out with a picture of a Humalog vial. And the lady's like, oh, okay. Smiled and went in the back room, came out with a box of vial of insulin. And I didn't know much Spanish, but I was like, cuatro, por favor. She like smiled, came back with 4 more. So that's 5. I got 5 from there. So November, December, January, February, March. She'll live to her next birthday. Around this time, I did find an online Canadian pharmacy. They were legit selling insulin about $50 a vial. So much better than the $300 or so that it was in the US. I didn't have any coverage yet because I'm buying insulin. And I didn't want to spend $700 just for me. And I'm healthy as a horse, I thought. And so I didn't have coverage for a couple. I just tried not to climb ladders and hope for the best. And I paid the tax penalty. Thank you. Thank you. Got you nothing. I was also buying Advair for another family member from Canada. Down the street at the CVS, they won $180 for a disc of, they call it a disc, the little inhaler. $180 for 1 month. In Canada, I was able to order 6 of them for $180. So the same money gets you 6 months or 1 month. Okay. And then they tried to screw that up too on me. My government did it. Yeah, the former guy. The former guy. They met at the White House with people from Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, American Express, Carte Blanche, Diners Club, I guess, all of them. And they decided not to accept charges from Canadian online pharmacies. So now when I went to go buy my asthma inhalers for my wife, okay, they now said, oh, you can't pay with a charge card. So you had to go back to old school and either mail them a check, or then they had something that you could, I took a picture of a check I made out to them, emailed that to them. But boy, that seems really shady if you've never worked with this company before. Like I got to mail them pictures of checks. What are they up to? When I say the former guy, Barack Obama. Barack Obama did this. And he's in the same party that gave us NAFTA. He shoved NAFTA up our dupa. And I don't know if you thought you were going to learn any Polish words today, but there's one you could figure out. He gave us, Democrats gave us NAFTA. They told us how free trade would be so good for us. And here's free trade. I'm trying to buy insulin and asthma inhalers from Canada. Not for you, man. Not for you. Not for you or you or you either. Sorry. So we were still on the Sopranos insurance plan, which qualified my wife and kids as covered. And then we were able to get a loyalty card. You hear these copay cards, a loyalty card for Tresiba. And instead of $450, it was now $15. Okay, great. That was great. And you'll hear about these copay cards and things like, see, the industry really cares. And now the awful Sopranos insurance we were under, it was coming to an end. My wife was getting a new job and it was going to have real insurance. And then it was just that time, like the last 10 days of the old insurance was coming to an end. And my daughter told me she's on the last vial of Tresiba, which is a long-acting insulin. And I said, okay, well, let me just go down, use the copay card, get it for $15. And I went down to the pharmacy and they said, boy, it's not going through. And I'm talking to Novo Nordisk and people on the phone. And they said, oh, that Sopranos insurance, they took Tresiba off the formulary, so this doesn't work anymore. I said, well, what about loyalty? Huh? Loyalty. They took it off the formulary, but I'm loyal to you guys, right? That's not how. I guess we got a different definition of loyalty. It was no good. So I left again, not the first time. I left life-saving medicine for a family member at the pharmacy. And when you drive home, even if there's no traffic, that's like road rage. And just so angry. And I went home, and then I'm looking at the vial of insulin that she has. And I'm an engineer, so I'm measuring it, the whole vial. I'm measuring the level it's at, and I'm trying to calculate how many days left we have. Will we bridge the gap to the new insurance kicking in? And then also the new insurance kicks in on a Saturday. So if there's any problem with the way the paperwork was filled in, like we ain't going to figure it out till Monday. But we did make it. We did make it. So, and we didn't get ripped for $450. So I'll get through this. So this also happened. Now we have fantastic insurance now, right? Like you wouldn't believe how good our insurance is now. The thing is, it's so expensive, but it's paid for by an employer. So people with good insurance paid for by their employer. Most of them have no idea what it costs them, but they really ought to understand that's money they're working for. Like that's compensation, and that's money because they're working for these people, and it's over $35,000 a year. Okay, plus we're kicking in another $2,400. So we pay for a $12 copay for insulin now, and if they ship it to us, it's free. It sounds great, but my wife's working $35,000 worth of work that she never even sees the money of that pays for that. So it's a big joke on us. I'm not happy with that either. So even with the good insurance, you still get a scare. My daughter was down 10 hours away in Carolina in first year of college, and she called up one Sunday night and said, I'm out of the Lantus insulin. The vial broke or something. I don't have any more. So she went to the CVS there, and she wasn't ready. It wasn't due for a new prescription. So you'd have to call the insurance company and get an exemption to get an emergency vial. And then no one's there on Sunday, though. So she left insulin back at the pharmacy, too. And then I got to tell you, I texted her Monday morning, like, hey, how you doing? Like 6:30 in the morning. How you feeling? How is everything? I wanted to know how she's feeling, but I just wanted to see any response because it was almost like, are you alive? And then she took her time texting back. But an hour later, okay. And I was like, great. Okay, good. And then she went, the insurance company okayed it, $12 copay. What a difference a day makes. So if this happened in Canada, because I know people will tell me like, oh, you know, she should have an extra, she should do this, you should do that, but stop punching down. This is a bad system. In Canada, I would just say, well, head over to Canadian Superstore and get it for $40 or whatever. That's the end of the day, you know. But here, I asked them, like, what if we just ponied up the money that night, Sunday night, and paid for Atlantis and worried about it later? How much would that cost? I thought it'd be $300-400. $900. They wanted $900 for a freaking gun to your head, your money or your life. And they said $900, but they said there's some kind of coupon or a card, a good RX card. It might get it down to $600. I said, you know, she took a lot of dance lessons in her life, like since she was walking, and maybe she could tap dance for 10 minutes and get it for $350. You know, maybe what if I say the alphabet backwards? Can we get it for $100? ZYXWVU TSR QPO NML KGI GFETCBA? Nothing? Hey, maybe they'll have those cold cards and you scratch it off. I got 25% off. This is a game. They're playing games with people for life-saving medication that people depend on, and you're just depending on games. So sometime around 2016, I saw a tweet or a post by Bernie Sanders asking about people who've had problems with prescription drugs. Because at the time, he'd been taking busloads of people to Canada to buy medicine. And as a $5,000 ride, baby, right there, as the ambulance goes by. Woo! Hope you're covered. Hope you don't have the Sopranos insurance. You might as well dump you right in the river. So we made a video. It had a couple million views. I was in the video, and they sprang it out one day. My daughter came home the next day from school, and she said all the kids were coming up to her that they saw her on the video online. I don't know, these kids are 6th or 7th grade, and they're watching Bernie Sanders videos, but I think that's really cool. That's pretty good. They're getting a good start. So working with his staff, I figured out the racket of why these prices are going so high, because you've probably seen the chart with like every year, and then the price of insulin, and then it just starts climbing up and up. And it looks like a double diamond ski slope from one direction, and it looks like Alpe d'Huez from another direction, if you're into cycling at all. But they will tell you when they testify to Congress, etc., they'll say, you know, we raised our list prices, and sure, our revenue grew, but the costs went up and the profits were kind of flat. They didn't really make that much more profit. And I'm thinking, well, how could that be? What else was increasing so fast and so high along with the list price? And the answer is rebates in the pharmaceutical industry. So they sell insulin to insurers for a high list price, and then they rebate most of that back. So they probably end up paying about the Canadian price, because if some guy from Trenton, New Jersey can figure out insulin is $27 in Canada, some smart MBA from insurance companies could also figure that out, and they know the target to get their final cost for insulin to. But why are they churning all this money, like writing big checks to pharma and then getting huge rebates back? And there's only two reasons I could ever think of. One of them is that high list price. When you see $450 for insulin, it scares the hell out of you. And it makes you say, you know what? I really should buy that better premium. I should go from bronze to silver, or silver to gold, or whatever. And I should really do this. So it's good for their business. It's good marketing, because it scares the hell out of everybody. But then there has to be something else, right? And talking to the people at Bernie's office, I found out it was actually in the Affordable Care Act. they had a halfway good idea in the Affordable Care Act called the 80% rule. The 80% rule says all the premium money they bring in, they have to spend 80% of that on health care, hospital, ambulance that went by, doctor's visits, prescription drugs. They got to spend 80%. If they don't spend at least 80%, they got to lower their premiums. Well, they don't want to do that. And also, this, if you notice, that limits their profit margins. It limits the profits. Insurance. There's no way they can make more than 20% if everybody were volunteering to work for them and they had no overhead. They couldn't make more than 20% profit. So they don't like that either. So what they do, or what it turns out they do, they bargain, negotiate for a higher list price coupled with a higher rebate. Now they have a lot of pull. You know, they're like Luca Brasi when they negotiate. And what they can do is, if you don't play the game with them, we're not going to use Humalog from Lilly. We're going to go to Novo Nordisk and get Novolog. And these insulins are like Coke and Pepsi. You know, they're kind of interchangeable for most people. So what are they doing, right? They're paying these high list prices. They're getting the big rebates back. The rebates don't count towards the 80% rule. So they get to tell you, we paid $500 for insulin every month. We got 450 back. No, that doesn't count for the 80% rule. That's like a backdoor to profits for the insurance companies. So that was my big discovery. We got more time? Thank you, everybody.